Hey guys, Rebecca back for the next episode of the Monday Mr. Money Mustache Motivation. If you're unfamiliar, Mr. Money Mustache is a financial independence retire early blogger that I love. So on Mondays, I like to pick an article of his and share it on my channel. Today's episode is coming from February 27th, 2012, and it's titled, Get Rich with Good Old-Fashioned Hard Work. In a recent article, I shared my enthusiasm for some of the confidence and hacking the system approaches covered in the Tim Ferriss book. In the reader comments that followed, there was lots of agreement, but also some Tim bashing, suggesting that he advocates taking unethical shortcuts and shunning real work. They had a good point, and it has reminded me to write this article today on a topic that I have long wanted to cover, working really hard. Sometimes on this blog, you'll hear me celebrating the idea of leisure. In the very first post, I talked about hanging out at home on a Sunday, Thursday morning while everyone else is at work, sweeping a few leaves off the driveway in my pajamas. Other times, I'll talk about kicking back with a deluxe home-brewed beer or catching giant fish and snowboarding in exotic locations. It would be easy for an impressionable youth to see these decadent displays and latch onto them as the end goal. How can I take a shortcut to get what Mr. Money Mustache has, they would say. I want that end result, and I'm willing to do any sneaky hacks I need to get it. So today, I'm going to have to shatter the illusion that I have built up about my easy life. But don't worry, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a piece of even better news. You too can have the lifestyle of your dreams, and to get it, you will need to do an absolute shitload of insanely intense, ball-busting work. And here's the best part. The insane work will bring you just as much happiness as the leisure time. So you get to achieve whatever you want, and you get to work really hard for it. Isn't that great news? Despite the fact that I sometimes talk about not working, I have actually grown to really love hard work, but it was only in the last few years that I realized this. Ever since I hit first grade and was fortunate enough to be placed in the top reading group, I have been hooked into hard work. Not realizing there was any other option in school than to get all A's on the report card, I naturally did whatever amount of stupid busy work in coloring, repetitive addition and subtraction, and putting up with irrational rules to get the perfect grades. Growing up through high school, I attended all the classes and did all the necessary ass busting to get the grades that would grant me university admission and eventually graduation. At the same time, I thought I was enduring a wasteful hardship, but really there was something else going on in the background. On the side of all this schoolwork, I signed myself up for a second line of work in the pursuit of cash. With frugal parents that didn't believe in giving their kids a free ride, I was forced to work for any money I wanted for myself. Starting at age 10, I cut the grass and washed cars. At age 12, I started working on their old Victorian house, stripping old paint from the massive front porch, and doing other projects which culminated into building my own bedroom in the attic at age 15. I later advanced to a cushy minimum wage job, pumping about 4,000 gallons of gas into rusty old Chevrolet Caprices every day, then moved up to a less busy gas station, then a hardware store, then a convenience store. Then engineering jobs between school terms, even over the Christmas holidays once. Then full-time engineering work, including many weekends and evenings. Then even the construction and blog typing work I'm doing to this day. There have been many times during the history of work where I've thought that I had it pretty hard, when I had to spend entire days on the university campus in the dead of a freezing winter, trudging through snow with inadequate food and non-waterproof boots from the 8:30 a.m. calculus class to the 9:30 a.m. chemistry class, on and on right through to the 8 p.m. physics midterm exam, all while being surrounded by a class of engineering students with far too many nerdy and quiet dudes who never made jokes and far too few beautiful girls. That was pretty tough. Whenever I'm upside down with my head and one scratched and filthy arm stuffed into a floor cavity, holding a grinder which is spinning a masonry blade, cutting off old nails and plaster so I can remove a wall or a ceiling, and the whole scene is a dark den of Vietnam-style dust, sparks, and shouted expletives, sometimes I think that work can get a little unpleasant as well. But as I've gotten older and made the connection between the hard work and the results and the constant learning and deep base of happiness it seems to provide in ever-increasing quantities, I've come to realize something that I wish I could go back and tell myself at age 15. Every single second of hard work you perform in your life will come back and benefit you many times over for the rest of your life in often unexpected ways. In other words, no hard work is ever wasted. It sounds ridiculous, but I find it to be ridiculous how often this proves to be true. One time I hit a serious roadblock when building my first house. Because of the architect missing some obscure rules about fire codes and roof venting, my house was not going to pass the framing stage of building inspection. There was a workaround which involved paying an extra $5,000 to have an insulation company install a special kind of spray-in insulation. My business partner, Dean, who we all met in the Big Mistake article, wanted to take the shortcut and just hire the company. The other option was for me personally to spend the entire weekend meticulously cutting and gluing up strips of rigid foam board insulation to every square inch of a high vaulted ceiling. Fuck the $5,000 expense, I said. That's not in the budget. We can crank out the fix this weekend and only spend $300 in foam board instead of $5 grand for the spray. Dean opted out of this task since he always liked to take the weekends off to relax, but luckily I had another hardworking friend who helped me out and we got the work done and saved the $4,700. The work sucked at the time. It was dark and cold working in that house shell in late November. I missed my wife and I got coated in filthy powder from the insulation. I questioned my own wisdom for taking on the extra task. It was only money after all. But it wasn't only money. Over the subsequent years, the information I was forced to learn about roof venting, foam board insulation, fire codes, building inspections, and a dozen other things from doing that work have enabled me to solve countless other problems in home construction and energy efficient design. Solving these other problems has brought in even more knowledge and opened up a whole new section in my mental toolbox that I get to use for figuring things out in many areas of life. And the shared experience of completing the shitty work together helped to build a longer-term friendship with the guy who helped me with the work. This guy is still out there succeeding and probably even reading this alongside you since he is a practicing Mustachian. And when I look around at other friends who survived the Great Recession while keeping their businesses alive and their base of friends intact, it is always the ones who were willing to sacrifice a weekend to, figuratively speaking, glue up their own damn foam board to solve life's little emergencies. Meanwhile, Dean ended up crashing himself into bankruptcy mostly because of his aversion for hard work. And that brings me to my next point. Shortcutters like my old business partner were often excited by the idea of making money without doing work. I have always been more interested in the idea of doing work and making money from it if possible. He always talked about how our business profit sharing should not be based on how many hours we contributed. I felt that it should be, since with hard work comes accomplishment. It led me to create this Mustachian maxim. In the long run, in the game of life, we all get paid by the hour. There are a few lucky exceptions, like the kid who gets a trust fund or inherits his family's business, the early employees in a company that eventually goes public, or the guy who gets famous for doing something stupid on TV. But when you're starting from scratch, you need to think of every hour of work you do as planting a seed that will bloom at some unpredictable time in your future life. Sometimes it looks like successful people never do any work. Most of the time it's because they have respected hard work all of their lives. Tim Ferriss often praises the idea of minimal working hours, but if you look at how he arrived at the 4-hour work week, it was through years of extremely hard work, research and testing, and 80-hour work weeks. During those 80-hour work weeks, he thought he was just wasting his time in answering customer and supplier emails and phone calls, but really in the background he was learning very quickly about how businesses and people work, and being forced to devise a system to take himself out of the loop. Without the 80-hour work weeks, he never would have been pushed to innovate, and we never would have heard of him. Bringing all this back to the Mustachian way of life, this is why I'm always advising you to work hard in your day job, but then also come home and take care of your own kids, clean your own house, cut your own grass, and spend the remaining time reading books or websites to research things that are of interest to you, with no passive television watching allowed. By doing all of these things, you're actually working and learning all the time without realizing it. Your mind is making unexpected connections between things you did during the day, things your kids said, things you read at night, and they are forming into new ways to make yourself happy, or to start your own business and earn more money, or to save money on some aspect of living, or to get life in general figured out. Hard work can be painful, but it should always be viewed as a good kind of pain. Just as you celebrate a good burn in your biceps and forearms when doing record-breaking set of contraction curls. When you find really enjoyable work, you can get many of the same benefits without as much pain, but both are kinds to be welcomed. It is the source of growth in your life, so get back to work. Message heard loud and clear. I am actually working overtime this week that I am filming this video, so This article resonates with me especially because, well, when it comes right down to it, I realize there's a lot of things that are out of people's control, but in general, I feel like that sentiment of pull yourself up by the bootstraps and make things work for you is an accurate statement. People I think the average person spends more time thinking about how they can't do things versus how they can make something work for them. And again, it all comes back to mindset, and I feel like people that are in the FIRE movement tend to have that optimistic outlook on life and problem-solving mindset. We have a growth mindset, whereas other people are stuck in their own ways and would rather just justify excuses as to why they can't succeed or achieve something that someone else has. So all in all, I think hard work is the way to financial independence. Let me know down in the comments below if you agree or not. I'll catch y'all next Monday for the next episode of the MFUMB. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye.